For centuries, whispers have haunted the corridors of power. From the palaces of Europe to the skyscrapers of New York, one name echoes in conspiracy and fear: the Illuminati. They say it began as a secret brotherhood, a handful of men in the 18th century daring to challenge monarchs, priests, and kings. But somewhere along the way, the story twisted. What started as an Enlightenment movement became the ultimate symbol of hidden control. They were accused of manipulating revolutions, collapsing empires, even engineering the birth of a new world order. But who were they really? Scholars tell us the original Illuminati was small, barely a few hundred thinkers and reformers, outlawed and scattered by the late 1700s. And yet, the myth never died. In fact, it grew stronger. Today, millions believe they still rule, from boardrooms to banks, from pop stars to presidents, silently directing the course of history. The evidence? Some point to the all-seeing eye on the dollar bill, others to cryptic gestures in music videos or global summits where cameras never reach. It's a puzzle built from coincidence, secrecy, and fear, one that blurs the line between fact and fantasy. So, what if the truth about the Illuminati isn't what we think? What if the story of a world controlled from the shadows is less about power itself and more about our belief in hidden power? This isn't just another conspiracy theory. This is a deep dive into the real origins, the transformation, and the psychology behind one of the most enduring myths in modern history. We'll trace how the Illuminati's name was buried, resurrected, and repurposed, from secret societies in Bavaria to YouTube theories that reach billions. You'll see how myths mix with truth, how real influence hides in plain sight, not through magical symbols, but through money, media, and human nature itself. And by the end, you'll understand why the idea of the Illuminati refuses to die, because maybe, in a way, it never could. So look closer, not at the triangle or the eye, but at the mirror. Because the story of the Illuminati isn't just about them, it's about us. In every corner of the modern world, whispers of a hidden power echo through conversations, books, and screens. Politicians, billionaires, and artists are rumored to answer to something greater, something unseen. The name given to this force is the Illuminati, a word that has evolved from history into legend. But behind the internet memes and cinematic symbols lies a story rooted in the turmoil of Enlightenment Europe. The idea of a secret group controlling the world captures the imagination because it speaks to a primal fear that freedom itself may be an illusion. Yet to uncover the truth, we must separate what was real from what was later invented and trace how a small secret society of intellectuals became a global myth of domination. The fascination with the Illuminati begins with mystery itself. Humans have always sought patterns behind chaos, explanations behind power. When the world feels too complex, the idea of a hidden hand offers clarity. The notion of shadow rulers gives meaning to random events, a comforting if terrifying narrative. The Illuminati's legend thrives precisely because it merges truth and myth so seamlessly. It began not with evil intentions, but with men who sought to illuminate minds, not enslave them. What followed, however, was a centuries-long transformation, from a secret fraternity of reason to the ultimate symbol of conspiracy. To understand how such a transformation occurred, we must travel back to the 18th century Bavaria, a world shaped by censorship, religious dominance, and the Enlightenment's first sparks. Universities were battlegrounds of ideas, and science was struggling against superstition. In this climate, the term illumination represented progress, knowledge, and liberation from ignorance. Yet even noble ideas needed secrecy to survive. The original Illuminati used hidden meetings and coded correspondence not to control the world, but to discuss ideas too radical for their time. They dreamed of a future led by intellect and morality, rather than birthright and blind faith. But secrecy always invites suspicion, and in a world ruled by fear of heresy, a secret society, no matter how idealistic, was destined to become the villain of history. The name Illuminati would later take on a life of its own, spreading far beyond the boundaries of its Bavarian birthplace. Myths of hidden symbols on currency, shadowy gatherings of elites, and coded messages in popular music would all emerge centuries later. But these myths were not born from fact, they were born from fascination. The more the truth of the original Illuminati faded into obscurity, the more the imagination filled the gaps. And so, what began as an Enlightenment experiment was reborn as the world's most powerful legend, a legend that endures because it reflects our deepest question: who truly holds power over our lives? The truth behind the Illuminati begins not in the smoke-filled rooms of modern conspiracy, but in the lecture halls of 18th century Bavaria. The year was 1776, the same year America declared independence, and a German professor named Adam Weishaupt was quietly planning a revolution of his own. He was not a soldier or politician, but a philosopher deeply disillusioned by the Church's domination over education and thought. Born into a world where the Jesuits controlled universities, Weishaupt envisioned a society guided by reason, science, and moral enlightenment, rather than dogma or inherited power. He called his creation the Order of the Illuminati, a name derived from Illuminatus, meaning enlightened one. Weishaupt's idea was simple yet radical: to cultivate a network of free thinkers who could influence the world's power structures from within. These men were not anarchists or magicians. They were lawyers, doctors, writers, and intellectuals frustrated by corruption and superstition. They met in secret to share forbidden books and debate philosophy, crafting a vision of a more rational society. Their tools were not weapons, but knowledge, persuasion, and secrecy. In their eyes, secrecy was not meant to deceive. It was a shield against persecution. They believed enlightenment could not be imposed by force. It had to be nurtured quietly, like a spark spreading through the minds of those ready to receive it. The early Illuminati adopted a structured hierarchy similar to Freemasonry, which they infiltrated and emulated. Members progressed through ranks: novice, minival, and illuminated minor, each with increasing access to inner knowledge. Weishaupt himself adopted the code name Spartacus, a symbol of rebellion against tyranny, while his associate Adolf Nigger took the name Philo, the lover of wisdom. They used ciphers, pseudonyms, and symbols to conceal their activities, creating an atmosphere that both protected them and fueled their mystique. Their goals were intellectual: to promote reason, freedom of thought, and equality. Yet from the outside, to monarchs and clergymen, their secrecy looked like sedition. As the order expanded, it began attracting powerful minds from across Europe, nobles, academics, and even members of the clergy who sympathized with reform. But the more it grew, the more it drew attention. Governments began to see it not as a society of thinkers, but as a potential threat to the established order. In an age already rattled by revolutions, the very idea of an invisible network promoting liberty was enough to stir paranoia. The Illuminati's dream of enlightenment would soon collide with the reality of political fear, a clash that would seal its fate. What is often forgotten in modern retellings is how grounded the Illuminati's philosophy was in the Enlightenment itself. Their writings echoed the works of Rousseau, Voltaire, and Kant, focusing on education and reason as the paths to progress. There was no evidence of plans for global domination, only the desire to challenge ignorance and arbitrary rule. But history has a way of reshaping the past through the lens of fear. What Weishaupt began as a movement of reason would, in time, become distorted into a myth of control. As the Order of the Illuminati took shape, it evolved from a small circle of scholars into a meticulously organized network with a structure as intricate as its ambitions. Adam Weishaupt, influenced by his studies in philosophy and law, believed that enlightenment could not simply spread through chaos. It required discipline, secrecy, and structure. He modeled his organization like a living machine, with layers of ranks, each one more secretive and intellectually demanding than the last. Members were not merely invited, they were tested, observed, and initiated through rituals designed to measure loyalty and intellect. What emerged was a system that blended Enlightenment ideals with the mystery of ancient brotherhoods. The Illuminati hierarchy began with the novice, a new recruit carefully vetted before being allowed deeper into the order's secrets. A novice's task was to study philosophy, moral law, and critical reasoning, often under the guidance of a superior who evaluated his character. Once proven, he advanced to Minerval, named after Minerva, the Roman goddess of wisdom. These Minervals participated in gatherings called Minerval's assemblies, where discussions on ethics and reform took place. They were encouraged to question authority, religion, and even the monarchy, but always within the bounds of reason. It was a structured enlightenment, not rebellion for its own sake. At the highest level were the illuminated minors and major Illuminati, who guided policy, recruited new members, and subtly infiltrated institutions of influence. This was not infiltration for domination, but for reform. Their mission was to enlighten from within, to place rational thinkers inside systems of power so that corruption and superstition could gradually fade. Still, to the outside world, such a system seemed ominous. The secrecy, the coded names, the layers of initiation, it all gave the order an aura of the occult. Weishaupt insisted that every member adopt a pseudonym. He became Spartacus, invoking the rebel slave who defied Rome, while others chose names from mythology or history: Cato, Diogenes, Agrippa. These names served both as protection and symbolism, binding each member to an ideal. Correspondence was encrypted, and communications often used classical references only insiders could understand. In time, their meetings adopted the trappings of ritual, candles, oaths, and symbolic gestures. Yet unlike mystical societies, their symbolism had no supernatural intent. It was philosophical theatre. Each act meant to remind the member of the moral weight of truth and the danger of ignorance. The Illuminati borrowed heavily from the Freemasons, whose lodges were already spread throughout Europe. Many early members were Masons themselves, seeing the Illuminati as a more intellectually pure counterpart to Freemasonry's moral code. The blending of the two orders helped the Illuminati expand rapidly, but it also invited suspicion from both governments and the Masonic establishment. As rumors spread that the Illuminati were attempting to take over the lodges, Weishaupt's experiment began to look, to outsiders, like a conspiracy in progress. But for the men within it, the experience was transformative. Letters from surviving members reveal an almost religious devotion to the cause of enlightenment, a conviction that secrecy was a small price to pay for truth. They saw themselves as guardians of humanity's moral progress, operating quietly to plant the seeds of freedom. Yet the irony of their ambition was clear. In seeking to free mankind from hidden powers, they themselves became the world's most famous hidden power. As the 20th century progressed, whispers about the Illuminati resurfaced, louder and more widespread than ever before. The devastation of 2 world wars, the rise of nuclear weapons, and the sudden emergence of global institutions like the United Nations reignited fears of a single, orchestrated world power. The theory evolved. The Illuminati was no longer a secret enlightenment group, but an elite shadow government manipulating history itself. Researchers pointed to political figures, bankers, and industrial magnates as alleged members. Conspiracy theorists claimed families like the Rothschilds and Rockefellers controlled entire economies, pulling the strings of nations through debt, influence, and manipulation. Symbols such as the pyramid and all-seeing eye on the US dollar bill were reinterpreted as proof of their reach, hidden in plain sight, mocking an unsuspecting public. The Cold War only deepened these suspicions, with superpowers locked in a silent struggle for dominance. Propaganda and espionage fed into paranoia. Every assassination, revolution, or global crisis seemed part of an elaborate puzzle. Even the moon landing was viewed through a conspiratorial lens. Was it a genuine achievement or a display orchestrated by secret societies to demonstrate control of the masses through televised illusion? Governments began to recognize the power of secrecy, and secrecy itself became a tool of control. People started to believe that knowledge was being filtered, that every major decision, from wars to economics, was decided behind closed doors by unseen hands. As the world transitioned into the digital era, the Illuminati myth adapted once more. Pop culture became its loudest amplifier. Musicians, actors, and influencers were accused of being initiates, using symbols like triangles, hidden eyes, and hand gestures as silent nods to their allegiance. Music videos, album covers, and award shows became alleged ceremonies of symbolism. The idea was no longer that the Illuminati ruled only nations, but that it shaped culture and consciousness itself. Celebrities like Beyoncé, Jay-Z, and Rihanna became the new faces of this ancient order in the public imagination. Whether they denied it or mocked it, the myth persisted, because it fed something deeper, a fear that power always hides where it cannot be seen. By the turn of the 21st century, the lines between truth and conspiracy had blurred completely. With the rise of the internet, the Illuminati narrative exploded into countless interpretations. Online forums and viral videos spread theories faster than ever before, weaving connections between secret societies, global banks, and even alien civilizations. What began as an Enlightenment movement centuries ago had transformed into the ultimate symbol of hidden control, an idea so powerful it needed no evidence, only belief. And that belief, for millions, was unshakable. As the digital age accelerated, the Illuminati conspiracy mutated into something almost alive, shifting, adapting, feeding on the endless flow of online information. The internet, once hailed as the ultimate tool of freedom, became a double-edged sword. Anyone could now publish evidence of hidden societies, elite cabals, and global manipulation. Anonymous message boards, deep web leaks, and viral videos blurred the boundary between truth and fabrication. Every major event, a financial crash, a celebrity scandal, a pandemic, was linked back to an unseen hand, supposedly pulling strings to maintain control. Algorithms began to echo this paranoia, feeding users more of what they already feared, turning curiosity into obsession. Documentaries and influencers capitalized on the hysteria, claiming insider knowledge or hidden leaks. Terms like New World Order and global elites became mainstream, embedded in political rhetoric and social media hashtags. Protesters around the world began referencing secret powers controlling society, merging genuine social discontent with fantastical plots. For many, the Illuminati was no longer just a shadowy elite, it was the system itself, an invisible network of money, media, and manipulation. The myth had consumed reality, becoming a language to explain everything that felt rigged, unjust, or incomprehensible. But beneath the chaos of online conspiracies, something more subtle was happening. The very concept of the Illuminati began to serve a purpose for those in power. By dismissing real corruption as mere conspiracy theory, governments and corporations found an easy shield. The louder and wilder the Illuminati stories grew, the easier it became to discredit anyone asking legitimate questions about power, secrecy, and control. The myth, in a strange twist, began protecting the very structures it was meant to expose. The hunter had become the prey of its own creation. By the mid-2020s, AI-generated deepfakes, fabricated documents, and virtual influencers made truth almost impossible to verify. Conspiracy forums evolved into self-sustaining ecosystems where facts didn't matter, belief did. In this new digital landscape, the Illuminati became less a group and more a symbol of fear, of manipulation, of humanity's need to make sense of a chaotic world. Whether real or imagined, the idea continued to thrive because it answered an ancient question: who really holds the power? And as long as that question remains unanswered, the Illuminati, myth or not, will never truly disappear. When the Bavarian Illuminati was officially disbanded in 1785, most assumed that was the end of their story. The organization had been outlawed, its documents confiscated, its members silenced or absorbed into other movements. But history has a peculiar way of transforming silence into mystery. What began as a small Enlightenment-era fraternity dedicated to reason and progress slowly evolved into something larger than life, a myth that refused to die. The lack of evidence about their continued existence only made people more certain that they had survived in secret. In the decades that followed, whispers began to spread across Europe. Former members were rumored to have infiltrated Masonic lodges, royal courts, and revolutionary movements. Writers claimed that the Illuminati had staged their own downfall, faking persecution to slip deeper into secrecy. The story took on a spiritual dimension, one that blurred the line between philosophy, mysticism, and conspiracy. In this retelling, the Illuminati became not just a political order, but an immortal force, the unseen architects of human destiny. As the 19th century unfolded, new currents of esoteric thought, alchemy, Rosicrucianism, theosophy, wove the Illuminati into an ancient lineage of secret wisdom. People began to connect them to the Templars, the Hermetic philosophers, and even the magicians of antiquity. To some, the Illuminati represented forbidden knowledge, those who sought enlightenment beyond the reach of organized religion. To others, they were agents of darkness, devoted to replacing faith with reason and God with human power. This duality, light versus shadow, truth versus control, would define their myth for centuries to come. The Industrial Revolution, world wars, and global upheaval of the modern era only amplified the legend. Every major transformation in society seemed to feed the idea of a hidden hand orchestrating events from behind the curtain. Secret meetings between world leaders, sudden market crashes, unexplained assassinations, all became fuel for a narrative in which the Illuminati still ruled unseen. The myth adapted to the times. In one century, they were occult mystics. In another, bankers and politicians, and in ours, digital architects of global systems. By the 20th century, the Illuminati had transcended history and entered the realm of culture. Their symbols, the pyramid, the all-seeing eye, the obelisk, became visual shorthand for secrecy and power. Musicians, filmmakers, and authors invoked them endlessly, sometimes as satire, sometimes as prophecy. Ironically, what was once the language of secrecy became one of mass exposure. The myth had become self-sustaining, no longer needing proof or witnesses. It existed everywhere, in the media we consumed, in the architecture we built, in the institutions we trusted and feared. Today, the Illuminati represents more than a vanished order. It stands as a mirror to our collective anxieties about power, manipulation, and control. Whether real or symbolic, their story endures because it touches something primal within us, the suspicion that the world is not truly ours, that unseen forces guide the course of history. The myth of the Illuminati has become a modern scripture of doubt, a reflection of our need to find meaning behind chaos. In a strange way, the Illuminati achieved a form of immortality that no secret society could ever plan for. They survived not through domination, but through narrative, through the very human instinct to connect unseen dots. Centuries after their suppression, they live on as the embodiment of hidden knowledge, forbidden truth, and the eternal question that haunts every civilization: who truly holds the power? The enduring fascination with the Illuminati isn't only about the rumors of power or secret domination, it's also about the symbols. Across architecture, money, art, and media, people began to notice recurring motifs. The all-seeing eye, the unfinished pyramid, the number 13, the triangle, and the owl of Minerva. These images became the visual language of mystery, each one whispered to conceal hidden meanings, ancient wisdom, or veiled control. To believers, they were the fingerprints of the Illuminati, a coded network of communication left in plain sight for those with eyes to see. The most famous of these symbols is the Eye of Providence, an ancient emblem of divine watchfulness. It appears on the US $1 bill, hovering above a pyramid with the Latin phrase "Annuit Ceptis." He approves of our undertakings. For many, this was evidence of the Illuminati's hand in the founding of America, a subtle declaration that the new republic was guided by a secret order of enlightened men. Yet historians trace the symbol's origin far earlier, to Christian iconography representing God's omniscience. The pyramid, too, is a common symbol of strength and endurance, not proof of a hidden cabal. Still, the convergence of these ancient emblems in modern institutions made suspicion irresistible. Throughout the 19th and 20th centuries, new technologies and mass media carried these symbols everywhere. Architecture of major cities, Washington, D.C., London, Paris, was filled with geometric alignments and obelisks, often interpreted as coded designs of Masonic or Illuminati influence. In truth, most were products of neoclassical design trends inspired by ancient civilizations. But the myths grew faster than facts could contain them. By the late 20th century, pop culture had fully absorbed the Illuminati aesthetic. Album covers, music videos, fashion, and even corporate logos began to incorporate triangles, eyes, and serpentine shapes. Some artists used them deliberately, playing with the intrigue. Others were accused of secret allegiance simply for aesthetic choices. The fascination with hidden codes became a global pastime. Fans dissected Hollywood films frame by frame, searching for subliminal messages. Social media users pointed out supposed Illuminati patterns in advertisements, architecture, and political ceremonies. The line between reality and symbolism blurred until symbols themselves became the message. The more they appeared, the more people believed there must be something behind them. Yet symbols have always been part of human language. They transcend words, carrying meaning across generations. The triangle, for example, represents balance and strength. The eye, awareness and truth. The pyramid, the pursuit of enlightenment. Ironically, these are the very ideals the original Illuminati once stood for, before fear turned their philosophy into myth. Whether as divine emblems or tools of manipulation, the symbols of the Illuminati remain powerful because they speak directly to our subconscious. They remind us that meaning can hide in plain sight, that even in a world flooded with information, mystery still finds a way to endure. By the dawn of the 21st century, the Illuminati had become more than a myth. It had become entertainment, philosophy, and social commentary all at once. Its story had evolved through centuries of speculation and had now fused with the DNA of global pop culture. What began as whispers of an Enlightenment-era secret society now echoed through best-selling novels, blockbuster films, viral YouTube videos, and internet memes. From Dan Brown's Angels and Demons to the endless scroll of online evidence, the Illuminati had found a new home in the digital age, the human imagination. Writers like Brown, drawing from a blend of real history and modern myth, reignited global fascination with secret orders and coded knowledge. His novels portrayed the Illuminati as both adversary and symbol, a hidden force that embodied the eternal struggle between reason and faith, science and superstition. Hollywood soon followed. Films, television series, and music videos used Illuminati imagery as visual shorthand for mystery and power. The all-seeing eye, once a symbol of divine wisdom, became an icon of surveillance, manipulation, and omnipresent control. Simultaneously, the internet became the new printing press for conspiracies. YouTube documentaries with dramatic narration and ominous soundtracks claimed to expose the Illuminati's grip over world politics and pop culture. On Reddit, 4chan, and countless forums, anonymous users connected every major event to an invisible elite. Musicians like Jay-Z, Beyoncé, and Lady Gaga were accused of secret allegiance, their performances dissected frame by frame for hidden hand gestures and symbolism. What was once a myth now became a participatory phenomenon. Anyone with a screen could investigate and become part of the mystery. According to academic analyses from sources like ResearchGate and Wikipedia, this digital-era resurgence wasn't merely cultural, it was psychological. Conspiracy narratives like those about the Illuminati thrive in periods of social uncertainty, offering a sense of order and clarity when reality feels chaotic. Believing in a hidden controller provides meaning in a world dominated by complexity and systems beyond individual comprehension. Platforms such as Spyscape document how the myth evolved into a modern folklore, an interactive, ever-expanding story shaped by algorithms and collective imagination. Meanwhile, researchers from Middlebury College and The Week have noted how the Illuminati became a catch-all explanation for global power structures. Whenever corruption, inequality, or elite manipulation surfaced, the Illuminati became the symbolic villain. The label absorbed every fear about globalization, technology, and government secrecy. Paradoxically, this myth simplified an impossibly complex world, reducing centuries of political and economic systems into a single narrative of control. But there's also an economy to believe in. Conspiracy media, podcasts, channels, and click-driven platforms monetize curiosity and fear. The more sensational the claim, the higher the engagement. The myth became profitable, and its propagation intentional. According to cultural analysts, the modern Illuminati conspiracy thrives because it satisfies both emotional and financial incentives. It rewards skepticism but punishes critical thought. It gives power to the powerless, yet deepens their distrust of institutions. In the end, the Illuminati's power in popular culture doesn't come from secret rituals or hidden empires. It comes from the collective will to keep the story alive. It has become a mirror for our anxieties about truth, authority, and influence. Whether laughed at, feared, or monetized, the Illuminati endures as a cultural ghost, an idea too powerful, too adaptable, and too profitable to ever fade away. In the modern world, the name Illuminati has become shorthand for hidden global control, from shadowy government councils to international finance, media conglomerates, and tech empires. Nearly every powerful institution has, at some point, been accused of being part of a secret Illuminati network. These claims, circulating through books, documentaries, and online forums, often follow a familiar pattern: that a small group of elites directs the world's political, economic, and cultural systems for their own benefit. According to this narrative, elections are staged, wars are orchestrated, and financial crises are engineered, all to maintain a single, unseen hierarchy of power. Modern conspiracy theorists often point to influential gatherings such as the Bilderberg Group, the World Economic Forum, or even the United Nations as proof of a hidden ruling class. They highlight global banks, media companies, and tech giants as extensions of this power structure, tools through which the Illuminati allegedly shapes public opinion, controls markets, and manages conflict. Some even claim that world leaders, from presidents to popes, are merely figureheads, executing plans designed decades in advance. Yet despite the boldness of these accusations, tangible evidence remains elusive. Scholars and historians have long examined these modern claims, searching for any verifiable continuity between the 18th century Bavarian Illuminati and today's alleged global elites. Their findings are consistent. There is no credible evidence that the original Illuminati survived beyond the 1790s, let alone evolved into a secret government spanning centuries. Researchers from institutions like Oxford, Harvard, and the European University Institute emphasize that while secret societies and lobbying networks do exist, none bear structural, linguistic, or historical links to the original Illuminati. What we see today, they argue, is not continuation, but appropriation, the repurposing of a defunct Enlightenment society as a symbol for invisible power. Still, it's easy to see why the myth persists. The modern world is defined by complexity, opaque financial systems, multinational corporations with more influence than some governments, and decisions made in elite circles often out of public view. To many, this resembles the very secrecy that the Illuminati myth describes. The narrative thrives not because it's proven, but because it feels true. It translates an abstract, impersonal system of global power into a story of human intention, a single hand guiding the wheel of history. Psychologists studying belief systems note that conspiracy thinking often emerges from a desire to find order in uncertainty. When global events, wars, pandemics, recessions, feel too big to comprehend, attributing them to an organized conspiracy provides emotional relief. It replaces randomness with reason, chaos with choreography. The Illuminati myth, therefore, functions as a modern parable, a way to make sense of power that feels unreachable. The scholarly consensus remains clear. While powerful networks certainly exist, none have been credibly linked to the historical Illuminati. The name survives not as an institution, but as an idea, a flexible metaphor for how hidden influence might operate. In a paradoxical twist, the Illuminati's greatest success may be its mythic immortality. It continues to shape conversations about control and freedom, not through secret meetings, but through the collective imagination of a world still searching for someone, anyone, to hold accountable for its chaos. Throughout history, numerous events have been woven into the ever-expanding tapestry of the Illuminati mythos. The group's brief existence in the 18th century Bavaria has been retroactively connected to revolutions, assassinations, and global shifts in power. But as we peel back the layers, what we find is a fascinating mix of genuine paranoia, political propaganda, and cultural storytelling rather than tangible proof of a shadow government. One of the most persistent claims links the Illuminati to the French Revolution of 1789. The argument goes that the society's ideals of reason, equality, and secular governance inspired the revolutionaries who toppled the monarchy. Indeed, documents from the period reveal how Enlightenment ideas, many shared by the Illuminati, influenced revolutionary France. However, scholars from Encyclopaedia Britannica and JSTOR Daily clarify that these similarities stem from shared intellectual roots rather than organizational control. There is no record of direct coordination between Bavarian members and French revolutionaries. The claim emerged mostly from reactionary thinkers seeking to explain sudden social upheaval through secret manipulation. A similar story unfolded across the Atlantic. Some have speculated that the American Revolution bore traces of Illuminati influence, pointing to symbols like the all-seeing eye on the US dollar or the Founding Fathers' Masonic affiliations. But according to historians and analyses in the Public Domain Review, these connections are anachronistic. The Illuminati had already been suppressed by the 1780s, and the iconography used in early America was rooted in classical imagery, not Bavarian mysticism. The conflation of Freemasonry and Illuminati ideals became a convenient narrative for those fearing hidden hands guiding democracy's rise. One of the earliest attempts to merge the Illuminati myth with anti-Semitic tropes came in the form of the Simonini letter, a forged document circulating in Europe around 1806. Purportedly written by an Italian officer, it alleged a secret alliance between the Illuminati and Jewish communities to dominate world affairs. As noted by Wikipedia and Cairn-Info, this letter became a precursor to later conspiracies like the Protocols of the Elders of Zion, blending fear of intellectual radicalism with ethnic prejudice. This hybridization of conspiracy marked a turning point. The Illuminati shifted from a defunct Enlightenment-era society into a symbol of perpetual hidden evil. In the digital age, Illuminati claims have taken new forms. So-called Illuminati leaks appear online every few years. Lists of alleged members, supposed initiation rituals, and even entire Illuminati Bibles claiming to reveal the group's beliefs. These viral texts often recycle old material or emerge from parody communities. Scholars note a recurring pattern: the less verifiable the claim, the more traction it gains online. Videos and posts blending celebrity culture, political suspicion, and apocalyptic warnings dominate algorithm-driven spaces, reinforcing the myth's immortality. The persistence of these stories underscores one truth: the Illuminati's greatest power has always been symbolic. They serve as a mirror for society's anxieties about who truly governs the modern world. From 18th century monarchists terrified of reason to 21st century netizens anxious about globalization, the narrative evolves, but the fear remains the same. For all the intrigue surrounding the Illuminati, scholars and historians are remarkably unified on one point: there is no credible evidence that the Bavarian Illuminati survived beyond the late 18th century. What persists is not an active organization, but a sprawling mythology that has absorbed countless unrelated events. From university archives to peer-reviewed research on SSRN and ResearchGate, the verdict remains consistent. The Illuminati legend thrives because of its narrative power, not factual foundation. Academic critics point out a recurring pattern in Illuminati conspiracy literature: exaggeration, poor sourcing, and circular reasoning. Claims are often built on each other without primary evidence. One writer will assert that the Illuminati control global finance, citing another who made the same claim decades earlier, and so the myth sustains itself through repetition rather than revelation. A 2023 paper on ResearchGate described this as evidentiary echoing, where beliefs gain authority simply because they are repeated across multiple unreliable sources. Historians find this especially problematic when amateur researchers conflate Enlightenment political societies with modern institutions, ignoring the massive historical gap in between. Yet the allure of conspiracy thinking isn't easily dispelled by facts alone. Scholars studying cognitive bias note that humans are wired to seek agency and pattern, especially in complex or uncertain times. The concept of a powerful hidden order gives chaos meaning. The absence of tangible proof becomes, paradoxically, part of the proof itself. When skeptics point out the lack of evidence, believers interpret it as a sign of deeper concealment. This leads to the famous epistemological trap, the difference between absence of evidence and evidence of absence. Historian Michael Barkan, whose work is frequently cited in academic reviews, explains that conspiracy theories occupy a closed system of logic. Every contradiction or disproof becomes evidence of how well the conspiracy hides itself. The Illuminati narrative fits this mold perfectly. The less documentation exists, the more it proves the group's sophistication. It's an intellectual paradox that makes debunking nearly impossible using conventional reasoning. In contrast, genuine historical evidence paints a simple picture. The Bavarian Illuminati, founded in 1776 by Adam Weishaupt, was a small Enlightenment society dedicated to secularism and rational reform. It was suppressed by the Bavarian government in 1785, and its surviving records, catalogued in archives in Munich, show a group more interested in academic debate than world domination. As SSRN papers confirm, the Society's correspondence reveals frustration over censorship and internal disputes, not blueprints for global control. Still, the Illuminati myth has flourished precisely because of uncertainty. Every unanswered question about power, from media influence to elite gatherings, becomes fertile ground for imaginative suspicion. Sociologists on ResearchGate argue that conspiratorial thinking fills the psychological need for control in eras of rapid change. The more unpredictable the world becomes, the more people turn to unifying stories that promise hidden order beneath the surface. Skepticism, therefore, is not merely a matter of debunking false claims. It is an ongoing cultural struggle between evidence and emotion, between the rational and the symbolic. The Illuminati endures not because of its members, but because of what it represents, a timeless fear that power always hides in the shadows, and that truth is forever one layer deeper than what we can see. At the heart of the Illuminati story lies something deeper than political paranoia. It speaks to a universal human impulse, the desire to make sense of invisible power. People have always been fascinated by secrets, especially those that claim to explain why the world feels unpredictable. Psychologists argue that conspiracy theories, such as those surrounding the Illuminati, endure not because they reveal truth, but because they provide structure in chaos. In moments of uncertainty, economic instability, political upheaval, or cultural change, the idea of a hidden hierarchy running the world becomes emotionally comforting. It turns randomness into design. Cognitive science helps us understand why this narrative has such staying power. Humans are natural pattern seekers. From prehistoric times, our survival depended on recognizing cause and effect, connecting rustling in the bushes with the presence of a predator. That same pattern recognition, however, often misfires in the modern world. We detect intention where there may be none, a phenomenon known as agency attribution bias. When large, complex systems like finance or geopolitics produce unpredictable results, we assume that someone, or some group, must be pulling the strings. Then comes confirmation bias, the mental shortcut that locks us inside self-reinforcing beliefs. Once someone starts seeing proof of secret control, an eye in a logo, a lyric in a song, a politician's gesture, the brain selectively filters new information to support the pattern. Social media algorithms amplify this bias by feeding people the content that confirms their suspicions. Over time, scattered coincidences solidify into what feels like undeniable evidence. The Illuminati theory thus becomes less about history and more about psychology, an elaborate mirror reflecting our need to see order in uncertainty. Interestingly, many scholars refer to the Illuminati as the least secret society. The paradox is striking. If the group truly controlled the world, why are we flooded with symbols, leaks, and public speculation about it? The idea of an all-powerful secret organization being endlessly discussed online contradicts its very purpose. This irony reveals another layer of the myth. The Illuminati functions as a cultural metaphor for visible invisibility. It's the fantasy of power that's everywhere and nowhere at once, a story that allows people to question authority while keeping mystery alive. Psychological research also suggests that belief in hidden control grows in proportion to one's feeling of powerlessness. Studies show that people facing social or economic marginalization are more likely to find comfort in narratives that expose unseen elites. The Illuminati myth, therefore, serves as a psychological defense mechanism. It transforms fear into explanation, isolation into revelation. But the enduring fascination with secret power also reveals something else about us, our dual attraction to and fear of authority. We despise the idea of being controlled, yet we are drawn to stories that suggest someone is in control. The Illuminati, whether real or imagined, embodies both the nightmare and the fantasy of human civilization, that chaos is only an illusion, and behind the curtain, someone always knows what's coming next. While the Illuminati myth may stretch far beyond documented reality, the idea of secret or exclusive networks influencing world affairs is not purely fictional. Throughout history, and continuing today, small, elite circles have indeed shaped policy, finance, and global direction from behind closed doors. But the crucial difference lies in degree. Real power operates through influence and access, not omnipotent control. Scholars often emphasize this distinction between the mechanisms of influence and the myth of total domination. In modern governance, secrecy isn't always sinister. It's often institutional. Intelligence agencies like the CIA, MI6, and Russia's FSB conduct operations shielded from public view, justified under national security. Similarly, financial institutions and multinational corporations often coordinate strategies through private meetings or unrecorded summits, such as the annual Bilderberg Group gathering. While conspiracy theorists cite Bilderberg as evidence of a ruling cabal, journalists who've attended describe it as a high-level policy discussion forum, opaque, yes, but not omnipotent. Researchers on SSRN and JSTOR point out that while elite influence is real, it is fragmented, competitive, and constantly shifting, not centralized under one shadow order. Lobbying networks in Washington, Brussels, and London illustrate how power actually circulates in the real world. Corporations and advocacy groups invest billions annually to shape regulation, trade policy, and media narratives. This is the visible shadow power, lawful but strategically hidden in plain sight. Think tanks such as the Council on Foreign Relations or the Trilateral Commission bring together policymakers, CEOs, and academics to discuss global trends. Their influence comes not from secret rituals, but from access, from being in the room where decisions are made. Transparency advocates often argue that such proximity blurs the line between consultation and manipulation. In the intelligence world, covert operations have indeed altered the course of history. The 1953 CIA-backed coup in Iran, or the Cold War-era surveillance programs, reveal how nations use secrecy to steer global politics. Yet even these operations are bounded, exposed through declassified archives, oversight committees, or whistleblowers. What we observe are pockets of clandestine power, not a unified order controlling every outcome. This distinction, influence versus omnipotence, is vital. The Illuminati narrative implies a totalizing, all-seeing command of global affairs, but real-world power functions through layers of negotiation, compromise, and conflict. Sociologists often describe it as a network model, not a pyramid. There is no single eye at the top, only countless smaller ones watching, reacting, and competing. So when people say, the Illuminati controls the world, what they often mean, subconsciously, is that someone does. The truth is more complex. There are indeed shadow powers, opaque systems that favor the wealthy, the connected, and the discreet, but they do not operate under a single doctrine or secret symbol. Their power lies not in mystical coordination, but in shared interests, social alignment, and the inertia of established privilege. The danger of believing in an all-powerful Illuminati, therefore, is that it distracts from these measurable, documentable systems of real influence. The myth paints a cosmic puppet master, when in reality the strings are tangled in 1,000 competing hands. Despite centuries of historical debunking, the Illuminati myth thrives more than ever in the 21st century, not through secret meetings or coded letters, but through the boundless ecosystem of the internet. Digital culture has breathed new life into an 18th century rumor, transforming it into a global brand of fear, fascination, and satire. Scholars studying online misinformation note that the Illuminati has become less a conspiracy about one group and more a symbol for everything people distrust about power. In the digital age, that symbolism spreads faster and wider than ever before. According to communication researchers on RxIV, algorithmic systems play a central role in this endurance. Social media platforms like YouTube, TikTok, and X, formerly Twitter, are designed to maximize engagement, and nothing engages like mystery and outrage. Conspiracy-related content triggers strong emotional reactions, keeping users scrolling, commenting, and sharing. As algorithms detect those behaviors, they amplify similar material, creating feedback loops of belief. A single Illuminati-themed video or meme can evolve into an entire ecosystem of pseudo-documentaries, reaction videos, and influencer commentaries, each recycling and distorting fragments of prior claims. This digital amplification isn't random. It aligns with cultural anxieties. Globalization has made the world more interconnected, yet more confusing. Economic inequality has widened, and trust in institutions, governments, corporations, media, has eroded. In that uncertainty, conspiracy theories offer seductive clarity. They provide simple villains and sweeping explanations for why people feel powerless. The Illuminati, as a timeless emblem of hidden elites, fits perfectly into this emotional void. As one RxIV study puts it, in a world of infinite data, the illusion of hidden order becomes psychologically stabilizing. Beyond belief, the myth also thrives because it has become profitable. Conspiracy culture today is a marketplace. Memes, podcasts, documentaries, merchandise, and clickbait channels all capitalize on the Illuminati aesthetic, the triangle, the eye, the coded symbolism. It's a form of digital theater, mystery packaged as entertainment. Influencers blend speculation with performance, turning suspicion into spectacle. Even mainstream entertainment occasionally nods to the imagery. Musicians, filmmakers, and artists reference it ironically, knowing it drives curiosity and attention. The line between critique and participation blurs, and the myth sustains itself through constant cultural recycling. The memeification of the Illuminati also makes it strangely approachable. The same symbol once feared as sinister is now used jokingly in viral clips, a wink at hidden power, a shorthand for something's off. This ironic use disguises the myth's persistence. While many joke about it, others absorb it subconsciously, reinforcing the belief that elites truly conspire beyond sight. The humor becomes camouflage for the underlying fear. What we see today, then, is not the revival of an ancient order, but the evolution of a narrative ecosystem, one fueled by emotion, technology, and profit. The Illuminati has survived because it no longer needs to be real, it only needs to be believable enough to share. In a time when information moves faster than truth, the myth has achieved a new form of immortality, as a digital ghost haunting every conversation about power. The real Illuminati, the Bavarian order founded in 1776, existed, but only briefly. Their mission was radical for its time, to challenge religious dominance, question monarchic authority, and spread Enlightenment ideals through reason and education. But their ambitions, however idealistic, were crushed within a decade. By 1785, the Illuminati had been outlawed, its leaders scattered or imprisoned. What survived wasn't the organization itself, but the idea of it, the notion that somewhere, unseen, a group of elites might be pulling the world's strings. Centuries later, this ghost of the Illuminati lives on, divorced from its origins and inflated into myth. Scholars and historians have found no credible evidence linking the historical Illuminati to global banking cabals, music industries, or government puppeteering. Yet the legend endures, thriving in the cracks of mistrust and uncertainty that define our modern age. It offers a comforting clarity in a chaotic world, an easy answer to hard questions. Still, dismissing all whispers of hidden power would be naive. Influence doesn't need cloaks and candles to shape reality. It flows through boardrooms, think tanks, private meetings, and unrecorded negotiations. Power often works quietly, not through secret handshakes, but through shared interests, financial leverage, and control of narratives. That is the modern Illuminati, not a cabal in the dark, but systems of influence operating just beyond the public eye. In truth, vigilance is not about chasing phantoms, it's about demanding transparency where real power moves. History teaches us that every unchecked authority, whether religious, political, or corporate, tends towards secrecy. But the antidote isn't paranoia, it's participation. Critical thinking, free press, open dialogue, these are our tools against manipulation, far stronger than conspiracy. The great irony is this: in the age of global communication, almost nothing remains truly hidden. Secrets may linger for a time, but truth has a way of surfacing through whistleblowers, leaks, documents, and investigation. The real challenge isn't uncovering hidden control, it's recognizing our role in sustaining it. The greatest secret of democracy is that nothing is truly secret, only concealed until we decide to look closer. In the end, the story of the Illuminati isn't just about secrecy, power, or shadowy control. It's about us, our curiosity, our fear of manipulation, and our endless search for meaning in the patterns that surround us. Every symbol, every whisper of conspiracy, tells us something about the human need to explain what we cannot see. Whether through religion, science, or myth, we are pattern-seeking creatures, driven to uncover the hidden order of the world. But the true power has never been in secrecy. It's in awareness. The more we question, the more we learn where influence truly lies. Not in a single group pulling the strings, but in the everyday systems we often overlook. The media that shapes our thoughts, the algorithms that decide what we see, and the institutions that operate behind walls of language and legality. These aren't mysteries to fear, they're mechanisms to understand. So as the myth of the Illuminati continues to echo through music, pop culture, and the internet's endless maze, remember that the story endures not because it's true, but because it feels true. It gives shape to unease, turning invisible structures into characters we can point to, blame, and challenge. In that sense, the Illuminati is the mirror we hold up to our own suspicion of power. If you've come this far, consider this your final revelation. The eye isn't just watching the world, it's watching back at you. Every click, every post, every search adds to the architecture of influence that defines modern life. You are not just an observer of this system, you are a part of it. So stay curious, ask questions, seek primary sources, study history, not the version shaped by memes or influencers, but the evidence buried in archives and scholarship. When someone claims absolute truth about who really runs the world, ask for proof. Real secrets unravel under light, and those that resist it often reveal their own weakness. And most of all, think critically, not cynically, because cynicism paralyzes, but critical thinking empowers. The truth about power is not that it hides, it evolves. It adapts to every era, every medium, every generation. And the best defense against it isn't fear, it's understanding. If you believe this kind of deep exploration into hidden histories matters, then help keep the light alive. Subscribe for more investigations into the world's enduring mysteries, the ones that shape our past and quietly define our present. Share this story if it makes you think differently about what control really means. Because in the end, the real secret isn't about who's in charge. It's about how much we're willing to see. The Illuminati may have vanished, but the human desire to uncover the unseen, that will never fade.